Good afternoon, football fans. Big Al here on this Sunday, December 22nd, 2024, and welcome to the remainder of the Week 16 NFL injury report, as we'll be taking a look at the major injuries from the remaining 13 games on this week's schedule. And we're going to waste no time and jump right into it, beginning with the Philadelphia Eagles at the Washington Commanders. Only 3 players mentioned for the Eagles. That includes safety Sidney Brown, who's questionable with a concussion. Meanwhile, both wide receiver and kick returner Britton Covey with a neck and defensive end Bryce Huff with a wrist are both out. And only 3 names for the Commanders as well, including defensive tackle Jonathan Allen. He's out today with a pec injury. Safety Jeremy Chin is questionable with a concussion. And tight end Zach Ertz, former Eagle, is questionable with a concussion and a shoulder. But according to many, he is expected to play for the Commanders. On to the Detroit Lions at the Chicago Bears. It will start with the long injury list for Detroit. Safety Brian Branch is questionable with a calf. Guard Graham Glasgow is questionable with a knee. Safety Afedu Melifonwu is questionable with a hand. This is a big one. Running back David Montgomery, he is out with a knee injury, but they have not ruled out a possible return for the playoffs. And linebacker Jalen Reeves-Maybin is out today with a neck. And for the Bears, guard Ryan Bates is out with a concussion. Defensive tackle Jervin Dexter Sr. is questionable with a knee. Running back Travis Homer is doubtful with a hamstring. Guard Taven Jenkins is questionable with a calf. Cornerback Jalen Johnson is questionable with an illness. Tackle Braxton Jones is also questionable with a concussion. And center Doug Kramer is doubtful with a shoulder. Alright, next is the Cleveland Browns at the Cincinnati Bengals, and we'll begin with the Browns. Quarterback Martin Emerson is questionable with a concussion. Meanwhile, defensive tackle Shelby Harris is out with an elbow. Tight end David Njoku with a hamstring. Wide receiver Cedric Tillman with a concussion. And quarterback Jameis Winston with a right shoulder are all questionable. Njoku may or may not play today, but we know Jameis Winston will not. He's been bumped down as the emergency third quarterback for the Browns. And there's my man, Check MP. Good morning, homie. So again, Jameis Winston has been bumped down to the emergency third quarterback. He's on the depth chart behind the new backup, Bailey Zappi. And for the Cincinnati Bengals, tackle Orlando Brown is questionable with a fibula. Guard Alex Kappa is questionable with a concussion. Defensive end Sam Hubbard and tight end Tanner Hudson, both with knee injuries, are out. Wide receiver Charlie Jones is questionable with a groin. And defensive tackle Sheldon Rankins is out today with an illness. Next up, the Tennessee Titans at the Indianapolis Colts. We'll start with the Titans. Wide receiver Colton Dowell is out with a knee. Tackle Jalen Duncan is questionable with a hamstring. Kicker Nick Folk is questionable with an abdomen. Linebacker Luke Gifford is out with a concussion. Quarterback Will Levis is questionable with a right shoulder, but he's been bumped down to the backup quarterback spot behind Mason Rudolph. Linebacker Kenneth Murray Jr. is questionable with a hamstring. Meanwhile, running back Tony Pollard and linebacker Otis Reese are both questionable with ankle injuries, but it looks like Pollard will play. And for the Colts, you have tight end Mo Alley Cox questionable with a hip. Cornerback Julius Brents questionable with a knee. Wide receiver Ashton Dulin is questionable with an ankle. Kicker Matt Gay is questionable with a neck. Wide receiver Alec Pierce with a concussion. And linebacker EJ Speed with a knee are both out. New York Giants at Atlanta Falcons. Will begin with the Giants. Cornerback Deonte Banks is questionable with a rib. Linebacker Brian Burns with an ankle and a neck is also questionable. Likewise for linebacker Deontay Johnson, he's questionable with an ankle. Linebacker Patrick Johnson is out today with a knee. Linebacker Bobby Okereke is out once again with a back injury. Center Austin Schotman is questionable with a fibula. Guard Aaron Stinney is out with a concussion. Cornerback Greg Stroman is doubtful with a shoulder and a shin. And running back Tyrone Tracy Jr. is questionable with an ankle, but it looks like he'll be able to go today against the Atlanta Falcons, who only have three names on their injury report. Linebacker Lorenzo Carter, questionable with a groin. Wide receiver Kadero Hodge, questionable with ribs. And wide receiver Casey Washington out with a concussion. Next up, the Arizona Cardinals at the Carolina Panthers. For the Cardinals, running back Trey Benson is out with an ankle. Guard Evan Brown is questionable with a neck. Cornerback Sean Murphy Bunting is questionable with a hand. Running back DJ Dallas is questionable with an illness. Tackle Paris Johnson Jr. is out with a knee. Cornerback Elijah Jones is also out with an ankle. Defensive tackle Roy Lopez is questionable with an ankle. Meanwhile, linebacker Jesse Lukita with a thigh, kicker Matt Prater with a left knee, and linebacker Mac Wilson with a concussion are all out today for the Cardinals. And for the Carolina Panthers, linebacker Jadeveon Clowney is questionable with a knee. Wide receiver Jalen Coker is questionable with a quadricep. Tackle Akim Ekwonu is questionable with an illness. Guard Robert Hunt also questionable with an illness. Wide receiver Xavier Legette is out today with a hip. Wide receiver David Moore is questionable with a concussion. And defensive end Ashawn Robinson is questionable with a knee. Alright, moving on to the LA Rams at the New York Jets. Starting off with the Rams, and it looks like they have no injuries to speak of, although they do have 7 names listed on the report. But it looks like everyone will play for the Rams today. Meanwhile, for the Jets, running back Braylon Allen is questionable with a back. Cornerback Michael Carter II is out as well with a back. Defensive tackle Leki Fotu is questionable with a knee. Guard Elijah Vera Tucker is questionable with an ankle. Defensive tackle Quinnen Williams is questionable with a hamstring, but it looks like he will not go this afternoon for the Jets. Moving on to the late games, starting with the Minnesota Vikings at the Seattle Seahawks. For the Vikings, fullback CJ Ham is questionable with an ankle. Cornerback Fabian Moreau is out with a hip. Defensive tackle Jalen Redmond is out with a concussion. And safety Harrison Smith is questionable with a foot. Only 3 players listed for the Seahawks, and they are all out for today. Linebacker Travis Gibson with an ankle. Tight end Brady Russell with a foot. And safety Kevon Wallace with an ankle. They are all out today for the Seahawks. Next, the New England Patriots at the Buffalo Bills. For the Patriots, safety Kyle Duggar is questionable with an ankle and an illness. Running back JaMycal Hasty is out with an ankle. Cornerback Marcus Jones is out with a hip. Safety Jabril Peppers is questionable with a hamstring. Guard Cole Strange is questionable with a knee. Tackle Caden Wallace is questionable with an ankle. And defensive end Keon White is questionable with a groin. For the Bills, you have 7 players listed, and they're all questionable, including cornerback Rasul Douglas with a knee, safety Damar Hamlin with a rib, linebacker Matt Milano with a biceps and a groin, safety Taylor Rapp with a neck, wide receiver Curtis Samuel with a rib, linebacker Balin Spector with a calf, and linebacker Dorian Williams with an elbow. All 7 players are listed as questionable for the Bills. Next up, the San Francisco 49ers at the Miami Dolphins. So we'll start with the Niners. Defensive end Robert Beal Jr. is questionable with an ankle. Defensive end Nick Bosa is questionable with a hip and oblique. Linebacker Dre Greenlaw is questionable with an Achilles and a knee. Running back Isaac Guerendo is out today with a foot and a hamstring. And tackle Trent Williams is out with an ankle. And for the Dolphins, tackle Teron Armstead, questionable with a knee. Linebacker Bradley Chubb is questionable with a knee. Wide receiver D. Eskridge is out with a knee. Or rather, he's doubtful with a knee. Sorry about that. Long snapper Blake Ferguson is out with an illness. Linebacker Cameron Good, questionable with a knee. Wide receiver Tyreek Hill has a wrist and is listed as questionable, but is also listed as a personal matter. Tackle Kendall Lamb is questionable with a back, and wide receiver Jalen Waddle is doubtful with a knee. Alright, Jaguars at the Raiders, and it looks like there's no major injuries to report for Jacksonville, although they do have 4 names on the report. So we'll move on to the Raiders. Cornerback Nate Hobbs is questionable with an illness. Likewise for linebacker Kanai Moaga. Guard Jordan Meredith is doubtful with an ankle. And cornerback Sam Webb is questionable with a back and an illness. Moving on to Sunday Night Football, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Dallas Cowboys. And starting off with the Bucs, linebacker KJ Britt is doubtful with an ankle. Safety Mike Edwards is questionable with a hamstring. Wide receiver Cameron Johnson is out with an ankle. Tight end Cade Otton is doubtful with a knee. And safety Antoine Winfield Jr. is out with a knee. And for the Dallas Cowboys, guard TJ Bass is questionable with a thigh. Wide receiver Jalen Brooks and cornerback Trayvon Diggs are both out tonight with knee injuries. Linebacker Eric Kendricks is questionable with a calf, but is also listed as a personal matter. Cornerback Jordan Lewis is questionable with an elbow. Defensive end Micah Parsons is questionable with an illness, but looks like he'll go tonight. Safety Wanye Thomas is questionable with a knee. And linebacker Nick Vigil is questionable with a foot. And then you have the New Orleans Saints at the Green Bay Packers tomorrow night, and we'll start with New Orleans. They have 5 players with significant injuries. 4 of the players are out, including quarterback Derek Carr with a left hand, running back Alvin Kamara with a groin, wide receiver Bob Means with an ankle, and wide receiver Chris Olave with his head injury. They are all out. The only exception is wide receiver Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He's questionable with a chest and an illness. And for the Packers, cornerback Jair Alexander is questionable with a knee. Cornerback Corey Ballentine is questionable with a knee as well. Both safety Javon Bullard and linebacker Quay Walker are out tomorrow night with ankle injuries. Tight end Luke Musgrave is questionable with his own ankle injury. And safety Evan Williams is questionable with a quadricep. And that is a look at your Week 16 NFL injury report. Busy day coming up here on Tuesday as we will run down the team and player statistical numbers from all 16 games here in week number 16 in the NFL on the week that was. And then I will have my picks video early on Tuesday because we have 2 games on Christmas Day on Wednesday. So I will get my picks in on Tuesday night. And then we'll go ahead and proceed with the Week 17 action beginning on Christmas. So again, join me for both of those. In the meantime, like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Ring the bell and get notified every time I go live. Big Al signing off. Thanks for watching and enjoy the picks game. Peace out.